credibility, problems with how she was coming forward, some of the actions she took. Those kind of get negated by Mr. Cosby's words, and if his lawyers cannot succeed in having that agreement upheld, I sense bad times for Mr. Cosby ahead.
So overall, the judge did say this case will go forward, but do you have an opinion on the outcome, or you have to see what more he allows, or she allows, rather?
Well, yeah, I mean, ultimately, I think if you think about what Mr. Cosby said in the deposition. He said something to the effect that, yes, I gave these girls these pills to, relax them or something to that effect, right? And, I mean, that's pretty much, all you need in terms of the committing the crime. Very little else matters other, because if he's admitted to sexual activity and she comes in and says they had sex, and, depending on what the judge does down the road in terms of all these other women and all these other allegations, like I say, my suspicion would be that if the evidence of his statements is not thrown out and is able to use, that he would likely be convicted, would be my take on it right now.
Interesting. We shall see, and another hearing set for a few months, and God knows when this will actually go to trial. The Pennsylvania over there is sometimes slow, but we'll see. Hopefully this will go fast. But essentially, this is a death penalty case for Mr. Cosby, because at 80 years old, with a 10-year sentence, for all intents and purposes, I mean, can he make it to 90? Yes, I mean, but he's going to lose all the good pleasure of what he has left if convicted. Agree?
There's no doubt about it. There is absolutely no doubt about it. But I think this issue regarding the agreement is gonna drag the case on, because I think the appellate courts are ultimately, or the Supreme Court of Pennsylvania is ultimately going to be the one who decides whether this evidence comes in or not. And it's going to take some time to get there.
It's absolutely going to take quite a while till this gets there. Now, let's get into this Virginia Tech story. And I'll play the background so the audience knows, and then I want to get your take on it.
A pair of Virginia Tech students, one a promising track star, another a former NASA intern, have been arrested in connection with the murder of a 13-year-old girl, a cancer survivor, who vanished from her home 1 week ago and whose body was discovered on Saturday, dumped near a North Carolina highway. It's believed that the two engineering students met Nicole Lovell online. She was a member of a number of back-alley social media sites. Her mother said that classmates have continued to pick on Nicole, who survived a liver transplant, MRSA, and lymphoma at the age of 5. They continue to pick on her on social media. We're now told that David Eisenhower, who is 18 years old, he was a track star, he's a star athlete. He has been arrested and charged with murder. Natalie Keepers, 19 years old. This is the girl, a fellow engineering student who had interned at NASA. She was set to double major in aerospace and ocean engineering. She had a bright future ahead of her. She's also been charged with 1 felony count of improper disposal of a dead body, as well as 1 misdemeanor count of accessory after the fact in the commission of a felony. So what we know so far, this is a very fast-moving case. This 13-year-old girl, this cancer survivor, disappeared only 1 week ago. Already the arrests have been made. They found her dead body. What we know so far is that this girl, she was on medication. She was continuing to take her medication. And on this strange day, for some reason, she didn't take her medication and went missing, never to be found until 1 week later, found obviously unfortunately dead. So this is a quote from her father. He said, "I find it strange that she didn't take her medicine." He said when she spent the weekend here, she always took her medicine on time. She always knew when to take it. I want to also point out that David Eisenhower, he was the star athlete at Virginia Tech. When he went to to Maryland. His high school track coach called him the best-kept secret in Maryland. And after winning Student Athlete of the Week in Baltimore, he told the media, he said, "I just have this internal thing saying that I want to be the best." He said, "There is no reason I cannot be as good as other people are. I will personally not stop until I reach my peak performance, which could be anywhere." So we're talking about an athlete who had a promising future ahead of him, who somehow got involved with this young girl. We're told they met online through one of these off-the-wall websites, continued some kind of a relationship, and he has now been charged with the murder of the 13-year-old.
Yeah, 13 years old, Joe, you can imagine the insecurity that she would feel, already surviving cancer, having scars on her body, being picked on in the 7th grade. That's a horrible time for anybody. And just wanting to be accepted and have some value, someone to tell her that she's pretty. I know that some of the comments that we were looking at, she just wanted that validation. And to be preyed upon like this and her body to be found, I can't imagine what her mother's dealing with. But you hear something like this and you look at the two profiles of these people, with a NASA intern and a track star, you wouldn't necessarily, it's mind-boggling.
Absolutely. They do seem like everyday, ordinary students, ordinary kids. We know that some of the websites that Nicole Lavelle was on at the time. Here's a few of the names of them. One is called, these are groups online, one is called 2015 Teens, Cute or Nah. Another's called Cute or Nah, Active 24/7, Netflix and Chill. These are the kinds of groups she was involved with online, and really there's a lot of talk about how she had a low self-image of herself. She was bullied at school. She was told that she was fat. These are things that her mother has come out and said to the media. And so it does appear to be a case of a girl who went through a terrible ordeal when she was 5 years old, having a low self-image of herself, joining these websites, and unfortunately getting involved with this older boy. Obviously, a lot of information will still have to come to light. This is a very fast-moving case. The investigation really has just been coming into its highlight over the last day or 2 days. This girl went missing 1 week ago, and the Blacksburg Police Chief, Anthony Wilson, he already said in a statement that a number of things, multiple interviews need to be conducted, evidence to be collected, analyzed as they reconstruct the timeline of events that has led to the murder of this 13-year-old girl, this cancer survivor, and these 2 Virginia Tech students who are being held without bail in Maryland.
Just a tragic story, Kirk Nurmi. What is your take on the whole situation?
Well, certainly I echo your sentiments on a tragedy. There's a couple things that are key here. I think one, obviously when we talk about the poor victim, we talk about the effects of cyberbullying can have on a young teenager and put them in the desire and the quest to be loved and accepted by someone, and unfortunately there are individuals who will prey upon that. And I think in Mr. Eisenhower and Miss Keepers, we see people that were interested in preying upon this young girl. And I think certainly as the days move forward and more is learned about what's on their computer and what things that was said between, at least, I guess, Mr. Eisenhower and the victim, we're going to kind of get a better picture. But, right now, based on some of the things Ms. Keeper said in court about her own mental health history and how fun it was to be a plot, and part of this secret kind of deal, and, them buying shovels together and things of that nature, it makes me, my inclination right now is to believe that these individuals, both these young individuals, just wanted to kill for the thrill of it. It's eerie to say, but that's kind of the sense I get at this point in time in the case.
Just despicable, and hopefully there'll be justice for this family that had to go through this awful scene, and these people that did the killing allegedly, they don't look apart. It's not anymore that you see people that look quote unquote like killers. You have 2 teenagers or 2 young people, and it's amazing that they're killers.
Yeah, I mean, there's no doubt about it. And I talk a little bit about in my book, Trapped with Mysterious, about untreated mental illness and intervention into the signs, because my suspicion at this young age, because there was seemingly no motive for this whatsoever, other than maybe the thrill of it, that there was probably signs in both these individuals who are accused of doing this killing. There were probably signs of mental illness that probably were not addressed properly, and perhaps if they were, this young 13-year-old girl who, is a fellow cancer survivor would not have been killed in this way. Correct?
No question. And speaking of cancer, Bret Hart, formerly with the WWE and the Hall of Famer there, has some cancer. Here's the story on that, and then we'll come back and talk on the other side.
Sad news breaking today concerning one of the biggest superstars in the history of the WWE, as Bret the Hitman Hart, 7-time world champion, announced on his Facebook page that he has been diagnosed with prostate cancer. Bret, who's 58 years old, was one of the mainstays in the WWE during the 1980s and 1990s, one of the most popular and beloved characters in the history of WWE, and after he made the announcement, WWE superstars took to Twitter and social media to voice their support for Bret the Hitman Hart, and we here at CBS do the same and wish Bret Hart the best as he battles prostate cancer.
Now, Kirk, as you had your situation with cancer, what do you make of this with Bret Hitman Hart and what he's going through now?
Well, it's a real hard thing when you first get that diagnosis. It's real shocking. I don't know the particulars of his situation, how it was discovered, but one of the things I've told people going forward or since my diagnosis is that cancer is something you don't feel. You don't feel necessarily bad. Prostate cancer may be a little different. You may have some pains and things like that, but in reading up on this story a little bit, certainly he seems to have the right attitude, taking it on, and not shying away from it and not trying to hide it. And I think it's great. I think it's great any time that a public figure makes the decision to be open with it, because I think that can only help people. But yeah, it's a smack in the face when you first get that diagnosis. There's no doubt about it.
But prostate cancer, do you think it's curable? I mean, is it one of the cancers that has a high, tendency to, with the death tolls? Do you know anything about this particular cancer? As opposed to...
I don't know a lot about it because it's so different than my experience in non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. But if I think that the one constant among cancer that I've learned is that early detection and early action is such an important aspect of it, because then the cancer is isolated to a certain area. And there have been many a prominent individual that I can think just a few off the top of my head that have survived prostate cancer, and I think because of early detection. And I suspect that as an athlete, Mr. Hart is someone who is otherwise in pretty good shape and equipped, which I think helped me in certainly dealing with the cancer. I think it will probably help him as well. So, and he's 58, which is fairly young for a lot of cancer patients. So, knowing nothing of the specifics, I would certainly think that Mr. Hart has a good chance to beat this because of the what appears to be the early detection and an attitude of strength and resilience when he's fighting against cancer.
That's awesome news, and I hope that does go through. He's a fighter, and I think he'll fight this one through. We're going to go out to the caller listener questions, but I do want to give everybody a shot to talk, so please just limit your questions to 2 at the most, preferably 1. So when I call